Spending time with us, and it's really a great way to close out for us what has been a very important but also a breakthrough year for Ford. As we step back, we've made a lot of significant progress in 2015 on our three priorities that we've set out as a company. The first one is accelerating the pace of progress of our One Ford plan. Secondly is delivering product excellence with passion. And third is driving innovation into every part of our business. So let me take each one of these and give you a few proof points. On the acceleration of our One Ford plan, you can see the 2015 headlines hopefully on the screen behind me here. And we are absolutely on track to deliver our company guidance for full year pre-tax profit of between $8.5 and $9.5 billion. And in fact, we've made $7 billion in pre-tax profits through the first three quarters of this year, and that's more than all what we earned in 2014. And if you look at the regions, taking our trip around the world for our regions, it's been another strong year for North America, and we're on pace in North America to be the best-selling brand for the sixth straight year in a row. If we move to Europe, Europe remains on a path to profitability, and we'll have a lot more to say about that in January. We've delivered on our commitments in Asia Pacific around our investments there and the plants, particularly in places like China. Importantly, we launched our new business unit, Middle East and Africa, and the team is off and running there. And we are extremely proud of how our team is dealing with a very tough economic situation in South America, and we're really glad to see actually our business growing there based on our new products. Now, speaking of products, our second priority, delivering product excellence with passion. What about those proof points? Well, we have successfully delivered the 16 global launches that we talked about earlier this year. And keep in mind, that's on top of the 24 global launches, which was a record for us in 2014. And interestingly, even with these unprecedented number of launches, our quality remains strong around the world. As a matter of fact, our quality is improving in every one of our regions around the world and is at record levels for us. Now, in terms of growth, we've been able to grow our global market share. If you look at the third quarter, our market share was up 0.3 percentage point globally. And actually, that was the third quarter in a row we've had year-over-year growth. And that growth is really being driven by our global SUVs, our Mustang, and all the new products that we've launched over the last couple of years. And speaking of launches, we have a lot of momentum in Lincoln. And when we close this year, we're on track for sales growth for Lincoln for the second year in a row, including growth in some key coastal markets on both sides of the U.S. And if you step back, we're wrapping up the biggest year ever for Lincoln products. MKX is off to a terrific start. In November, our sales were up 18%. Our MKC is now on track to be our best-selling SUV in our Lincoln lineup in its first full year. And if you look at China, remember we launched Lincoln in China back in November, and we now have launched 29 dealerships. And at the same time, we're also continuing to expand our coverage in important markets in Middle East. So let's move on to driving innovation into every part of our business. And I have to tell you, our approach, and we really are unleashing an innovation mindset in the entire company. And it's touching every element of the company, from our products all the way to our processes. And we've launched more than 30 mobility experiments and challenges. We launched that earlier this year. We've opened our Palo Alto Research and Innovation Center. We launched Sync 3, our third generation of Sync, to great reviews by our customers. They love it. And importantly, we're recognizing a culture of innovation internally, and we're celebrating that. For example, a couple of examples. The team has put together a new portable wind tunnel. Think about that. Portable wind tunnel. That's about challenging custom and questioning tradition. We also, to make us a more nimble organization to make decisions, we now have a cloud-based e-signature process where we can get things approved in a matter of magnitudes quicker than we have in the past. If you look at our Chinese business, we were able to have a Chinese currency bank line. And the benefit to this, it significantly improves Ford's credit ability to finance our growing customer base in China. Moving here to North America, we have a new production scheduling system for both the F-150 and the Fusion. And what this does, it not only has the benefit of reducing transportation costs, it really helps reduce the build wait times for our customers and our dealers. And speaking of our dealers, we have one of our dealers, I had a chance to visit them last year. They actually hire high school students and to work in the dealership and sit with customers, explain the technology, and there's a whole bunch of benefits for that. The customers are happier, the students get great work experience, and hey, they get to earn a little money, and the parents are happy as well because they're getting some business experience. But of all those kind of accomplishments that I just mentioned, I think the most significant for us is our progress on delivering results in the short term while developing plans for our future. And I kind of view this and term this as having 1 foot in today and 1 foot in tomorrow. And the 1 foot in today is about delivering this month's sales and delivering this quarter's financials, delivering this year's objectives, and those type of things. But then 1 foot in tomorrow, that is really about us understanding what the world may look like in 5, 10, and 15 years for our customers. And then what does that mean for our business? And then rewind back to today to make sure we're taking the actions that are going to position ourselves to be successful in that new world. And both this today and tomorrow are really joined by focusing on the customer experience. And I want to come back to that in a little bit. Because it's not just about the products and the technologies. Those are hugely important. It's about the customer experience. Now, we've looked at a number of examples that help us learn in this regard as we make that transition. First example is Nokia versus Apple. And I think Nokia learned the very hard way that your business can not only be marginalized, you can become extinct even after 150 years in business when you only focus on the hardware and you only focus on the thing. And if you think of Apple, Apple really brought itself back from the brink to become the world's most valuable company, and everybody's using Apple as an example, by focusing on the customer experience and the product. Because think about it, 20 years ago, right? It was Apple Computer, and they almost went away. And they focused on the experience, and they focused on the product. They changed their name, it's Apple, and they've been very successful. So as we think about this for us, moving forward, we're moving our team to be focused on this customer experience mindset. And as I said, I'd like to come back to that in a little bit. Now, as we deliver all this, there are 4 megatrends that we're looking at and shifts in consumer behavior that drive our approach. And the reason that's important is any good business needs to look at those societal changes and understand what does it mean. What does it mean for us? Or what does it first mean for our customers? And then secondly, what does it mean for our business? So the first one is urbanization. Today, there's about 28 megacities around the world, and these are cities with 10 million or more population. And by 2030, by various studies, we expect there will be 41 megacities around the world, bringing even more global gridlock, more congestion in urban areas. And here in the US, although we don't have any megacities, we're going to see urban populations grow almost 40% from 2012 to 2030. Plus, even at the same time, we're seeing what we call more urban hubs. And these essentially are kind of mini downtown urban areas in suburban communities. And it's giving millennials the opportunity to be in environments that they prefer, because they prefer to be in those kind of areas. So that's the first trend. The second trend, rapid growth of the global middle class. You know, there's, again, various think tanks out there that say the global middle class is going to double in the next 15 years. And by 2030, it'll grow from 2 billion people to 4 billion people. And actually a lot of that growth in Asia. And the middle class in general is expected to grow to more than 50% of the world's population by 2030. And of course, the more wealth that people get, the more vehicles that they own, the more miles they're going to travel, the more trips they're going to take each day, bringing, again, a new set of challenges around congestion. And of course, when you get into the middle class for the first time, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to buy a car, particularly in emerging markets, because that connotes that you've made it into the middle class. It's a big signal. The third factor is really issues around air quality. And this is not only just an issue around the environment. This is an issue around basic health for folks. As you know, when you look across the landscape, there's an unprecedented regulatory environment that you live in. Very aggressive CO2 and fuel economy and tailpipe emission regulations that are being adopted not only here in the US and not only in Europe, but in China and in places like Saudi Arabia, amongst others. So every part of the world is looking at this and imposing regulations. Now, one solution to that is electrified vehicles. And electrified vehicles have a strong regulatory incentive and also support for public charging infrastructure that's out there. And in terms of growth, we actually see plug-in hybrids as the highest growth among electric vehicles by 2018. Now, what's the benefit to the consumer? Well, the benefit is they get from a typical plug-in hybrid, it gets approximately double the fuel economy equivalent as a gas-powered engine. And if you look at battery costs, they're improving more rapidly than we previously thought, but still relatively high cost. And so there's more work going on to bring that down. And the fourth factor is really around these changing consumer attitudes and priorities. If you look at millennials, right, those folks that were born in the 80s, the mid 80s, all the way to the 2000s, you know, they're delaying marriage, they're buying homes, they're having children. Some of them may be living in your basements, but they're delaying a lot of things. But as consumers, they also are behaving very, very differently from our generations and other generations before us, especially when it comes to mobility. In a lot of cases, particularly in urban areas, they want access versus ownership. And among young people, you know, I saw this quote the other day, 30 is the new 20. Right? I'm still getting used to 50 is the new 40. But 30 is the new 20. And if you think about it, if you look at, for example, when people get married, since 1960, the first marriage has increased by 6 years for men and 7 years for women. Now, I don't know about the second marriage, but the first one, they've really upped. In addition, you're seeing multi-generational households on the rise, literally around the world. Now, while they may be, delaying their purchases and buying homes, etc., millennials are buying new vehicles. And if you look at some of the data here in the US, for example, new vehicle sales from millennials has grown from about 10.5% in 2010 to almost 16% in 2015. So millennials are buying cars and trucks and utilities. So these trends, these societal trends, are really shaping everything that we do as we develop our strategies going forward. And this includes our core business, but also these emerging opportunities.